All right, what's up, familia? Welcome inside the hotel room. Hope you guys are doing good, keeping in between the lines, got your load secure. As you guys can see, I have a stranger on. No, I have a very special guest, my sister, my hermana from Convicted Hearts, one Miss Jen Magana. What's going on, girl?
Not a whole lot, just honored to be here with you. How are you?
I'm good. Every day is a blessing, right? That's a good saying. I say it every day, even the days that I don't really find a blessing.
Yes.
I still say it. I'm like, well, you know what? I could have not woken up, right? So hey,
There's always that.
Yeah, hey, every day is a blessing. So I just kind of stick with that. But how you doing?
I'm doing all right today. Had a couple doctor's appointments, ran around with my kids, and my little one's home. 17-year-old's on her way back home from being down there. She was in Disneyland with her aunt. So, my oldest is at work, so they keep me pretty busy, but yeah, it's just another day in the life.
Yeah, and here we are. Isn't it great to do this without Sunny and Paul? My goodness.
I just feel like I can breathe. I'm just playing, guys.
All right. Shout outs to Paul and all their times and our guest, Sunny Boy from Sweet St. Louis. Okay, Jen, we're here to talk about a serious topic. Something that I've heard somebody mention this before, but I never got into detail, and I don't really recall anybody really that I know speaking about this. There's something with you, girl, that you don't really talk about. Can you just share a little bit with us?
Yeah. First of all, I appreciate you offering me this time to speak about it. I haven't really spoke about this publicly. There might be 2 or 3 people that know, and it's not because I'm hiding it or anything like that. I just haven't known how to properly address my health issues. And that is that I have lupus. I don't want to say I suffer from lupus. Lupus is something I live with. It's an autoimmune disease. It's basically, from what I understand, I've had it for some time now, but where your immune system is attacking itself, it sees its own positive cells as a negative. So your body is in a constant battle with itself. And that can cause different symptoms for different people with lupus. And there's different types of lupus. I first became sick or ill, in my 20s. And honestly, like my entire 20s, a lot of people, even when people share their stories, like, oh, what'd you do on your 21st birthday? Or I was sick my entire 20s.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So from your early 20s, from
21 years old. 21 years old.
Wow.
I can backtrack to, I had my first daughter, my first biological daughter, February of that year. And 3 months later, I had my very first migraine I thought my brain was exploding. I thought I was having an aneurysm or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it basically, my symptoms anyways, started from there. And lupus can, from what I understand, my doctors say can lay dormant. And a lot of people don't even realize they have it until the symptoms present themselves and you start seeing the doctor for various reasons. Mine happened to start out with chronic migraines and extreme fatigue, bone and joint pain. Now, I went many years without a proper diagnosis because, that can also be contributed to, okay, you're a new mom, you just had a baby. Okay. Of course you're fatigued, So.
I read, now I'm not familiar with lupus. Okay, like I said, I think I heard about it. I think I heard somebody say that they had it like, sometime in my life, but I could be wrong. So I don't know much about it. So I was reading up on it a little bit, and it shows that This attacks women much more than it attacks men. They're looking at about 9-1 women to men. So this is attacking the ladies on a much higher rate than it is the fellas.
Yeah, it does.
But from what I understand, they're not really sure what causes lupus, right?
Right. From what I understand, my rheumatologist, which is, by the way, once you feel like you have some symptoms, we'll get into that maybe later. You see your regular doctor, you're going to get recommended to a rheumatologist who will treat you. But it's partially hereditary, partially environmental. They aren't really sure if you've been exposed to a virus, something environmental. It really hasn't been decided how it's brought on, but partially anyways, it's hereditary, and it typically attacks females, and females from Hispanic or African American descent is who it primarily attacks. Not that it excludes anyone, but that's just the higher rates.
Okay, and I was seeing some of the symptoms. Could be what you're talking about, headaches. I saw one, they were calling it the butterfly rash on the face that you get on the cheeks. And so what made you think that you had lupus, or did you not know about it till you started going to the doctor and saying like, hey, I got a headache, hey, all these symptoms, and when did they actually diagnose you with it?
I'm glad you brought that up. First of all, it's something that my mother has.
Oh.
So
okay.
I witnessed my own mom very ill most of my childhood. Now, when I say very ill, I mean bedridden for months at a time.
Okay.
Months at a time.
Yeah. I didn't have it like that with my mom, but I had it like that with my grandma. She was always sick. And what was crazy is that my mom said, even when she was a little girl, that my grandma, which is her mom, was always sick. She never knew her mom not being sick. And she used to tell me, she said, the way you saw your grandma, that's how I saw her when I was, little. And I'm like, really? She was always sick. So this affected your mom. Now, I did read up that it could be passed down. It could be genetics. So your mother having it, was there ever talks about, hey, Jen, this could be passed down to you. You could have it. When you started getting your migraines, when you started getting headaches, when you started getting some of these symptoms, was it immediately to you like, okay, this is probably lupus?
It wasn't immediate because my mom had a lot of health issues. So there was that. And then there was also, I was young when I first started having symptoms. So I refused to accept that this is something that could happen to me. It's interesting that you brought that up. You remember your grandmother being sick, right? Well, I remember at some point my son, who, I had him when I was 16. I was a teen mom. I remember him telling me some years later, because I didn't have another child until 5.5 years after my son. I remember him telling me, Mom, I feel bad for my sister because she never knew you before you got sick. And that broke my heart. Because I remembered how much energy I used to have, like how much lupus really affects your energy also. Chronic fatigue is something that maybe some people that haven't experienced it have no idea. It's not like, oh, I'm just so tired today. If you speak with people that have autoimmune diseases like lupus, MS, fibromyalgia, not that they're all the same, but they're all silent illnesses. So like you can look at me and think, there's nothing wrong with you. you know. Well, that's because I'm presenting myself to you guys on a day where I was able to put makeup on and put my lights on and have a conversation. Not every day is like that. Most days are not like that.
Mhm.
But no, at first, I just thought maybe I had migraines because that's something my grandmother had, my mother had. And I thought, okay, I've got migraines. I had been in a bad car accident before. So I was, not that you were hopeful you have migraines, but I thought maybe that was it until my symptoms progressed.
It's funny that you bring up autoimmune disease, which it is. Well, first of all, for the record, my grandma, she was sick. She had diabetes, like bad, like really bad. And she lived many years with it, and then she started suffering from a few strokes, and then finally she passed away. It's funny that you bring up MS. I had one Mr. Big Joe Castro on here, and he talked about having MS. And he brought up a couple of symptoms. And I was just kind of like, Joe, some of these symptoms seem like it could just kind of go over your head and just be like, maybe I'm just tired. I just need to rest. I'm just tired. But then he broke it down a little bit more. And he's all like, no, you don't understand, man. He told me that he was on a forklift one time and he fell asleep. Like he just tired. He was just so tired. He just kind of just dozed off.
Yes.
I'm like, okay. Because some of these symptoms that I hear, I'm like, man, I could kind of just take them and just kind of throw it over my shoulder and just be like, you know what? Maybe I just need to get some rest. I got a headache, a bad headache. It's probably I probably just need to get some sleep or something. But just like I told him, some of these symptoms, one really needs to pay attention when they're really severe and when they especially keep going, right? Because it can really be an autoimmune disease that really takes you down, Jen, right?
Absolutely. It's said that typically people with an autoimmune disease will go 10 years without getting a proper diagnosis. That's 10 years of seeking help from a doctor. Whatever they're going, a complaint of a headache, the chronic fatigue, bone and joint pain, swelling in the joints. And in my case, it was especially true because it happened so young that it almost made me feel, not almost, it did. Most doctors that I saw were older. My actual rheumatologist was my mother's and my grandmother's rheumatologist. So if that gives you an idea. Okay. So he sort of laughed a little bit like, you're 21 years old, what can possibly be wrong, Yeah. So it made me feel, a little silly for being there. Like, maybe, am I being dramatic? No, because I have a very high pain tolerance. So once the blood work was done, they do a urine test, they have different things they do, and it came back to be that, it was lupus. And then he checked his files and realized who my mother and grandmother were, made that genetic connection. He did apologize. He remembered kind of being a little lighthearted with me, in the beginning.
Kind of sounds like me a little bit. Only difference, I won't apologize. I'll just be like, I don't remember you. No. One of the symptoms is a certain type of arthritis, right?
Rheumatoid arthritis. Yeah.
What is it?
Rheumatoid arthritis.
Okay. What does that do? And what is the difference between that and other arthritis?
Well, here's the only thing that I know, and this is what made my case more complicated as well. I was diagnosed with that before I was ever diagnosed with lupus. My paternal grandfather, who I never met, he passed before I was ever born, was literally and physically bent in half from rheumatoid arthritis at the age of 34 years old. So it cripples you.
Okay.
You basically are frozen into a position. And you can imagine back then, they weren't treating people with the medications we have now or physical therapy. And our grandparents were working hard labor. So my grandfather was physically disabled in his early 30s and had 12 kids.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's gotta be tough. I know people that have arthritis, and they tell me especially it's tough in the cold when the
Yes.
weather gets cold.
Yeah, it's
So,
true.
so Jen, when were you actually diagnosed? When did they say, like, you know what, you have lupus?
So I didn't get an actual diagnosis until my early 30s. I think I
Okay.
was 32. Now I started going to the doctor with physical symptoms at like 21. So, 10, 11 years
Mm.
later. And that's when it was like, okay, yes, you have lupus, your blood test, your urinalysis, like all, I don't know how this went unrecognized. We've got down here that you were diagnosed with RA, rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, but for some reason you were never checked for lupus. And I just want to present that it is very important if you have all these symptoms, or some of them, and you feel you may have lupus, to seek help, because with lupus in particular, it's important that you catch it early because it can move on to affect your internal organs. And you want to try and catch it before that happens.
Yes. Something else that I read on lupus is that it can make a female miscarriage.
Yes.
It does mess with your pregnancy, and the chances of miscarriage goes up exponentially.
True.
That's definitely something to consider right there.
It is.
What are some of the treatments for lupus? There's no cure for it, correct? There's no cure for it.
There's no cure, but the thing is lupus can go into remission. So
Okay.
you can be on medications that help sort of make your illness lay dormant. It's like silently there.
Mm.
And there's times it comes back and it flares up. Now, this might sound very vain and very like, how could you care? But I'm sure men care too. But as a female, when my lupus flared up at its most severe, I started losing my hair.
Mm.
All of my eyelashes fell out,
Mm.
my eyebrows, swelling in my joints to the point where I couldn't feel any feeling in my hands, fingers, arms from the elbow down, probably 2 to 3 hours in the morning until I started trying to move around.
Mm.
Like I said, those things can seem like very, that's nothing, but it does affect you. It affects your mental health and your overall view of yourself as a person.
Yeah. Well, I've people have called me a male chauvinist. So yeah, no, I don't care. No. No, I did see
Yes.
that it does what is it? Alopecia, same thing that Jada Pinkett has.
Yeah.
So you could lose portions of your hair. So that happened to you?
Yeah, it did. It did at my very worst flare, which is what people with autoimmune diseases, you'll hear that if you speak with them, and they've tried to educate themselves. It's a flare or flare up. So when your body is at its heightened fighting itself, one of the side effects for me and for a lot of people is hair loss, alopecia.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's definitely gotta be devastating.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different for a guy, especially about those that just shave their head and stuff.
Right.
Yeah. I guess the good news is there's one Mr. Will Smith out there fighting on your behalf for that.
That's why I had his back in the beginning, because anybody can get it.
So Jen, what are some of the treatments? What is it just medications? Do you actually have some sort of treatment, physical treatments that they do? What is some of this stuff?
It's primarily, for myself anyways, medications. You can in a certain, especially in the beginning, if you catch it early, you can be prescribed physical therapy. And if you catch it early, that really is helpful. It's important to stay mobile, which is a lot of people, and I'm one of them, who during my flare-ups would say, yeah, right, try being mobile when
Mm.
your hands are bent this way. And, but it is very important to try to stay mobile, even if it's just the smallest, take a few laps around your house or apartment or whatever you can do. You know what I mean? Lift, a few water bottles back and forth. Like, just try to stay mobile. Once we stop moving, really, that's when that stiffness and that inflammation sets in even worse. So physical therapy, there's medications. For myself, the downfall of those medications, if some of those are steroid based, and they can cause weight gain, and that's also another thing that's very depressing and difficult to deal with. But that's the point in your life where you have to think about your overall health and survival, and just try to surround yourself with people that love you and are positive and will remind you that this is going to pass. One thing that I want to tell people with lupus or autoimmune disease is we have to hang on to the fact that it can and will most likely go into remission at times. So cherish those times that you have, where it is laying dormant. Like, really try to do the most to enjoy those times.
So, okay. Wow. Okay. So, you're saying there's days. What's the worst days that you still have, Jen? You don't get out of bed. You just stay there and you're just that fatigued. You're that tired.
There are days upon days.
Mhm.
And, that's one of the reasons why I hadn't talked about it previously. And it's embarrassing as a mom, as a female, to think, wow, like, what are people going to think about? I shouldn't care, I know. What are people going to think about me? Like, you laid there for 2 weeks, you couldn't move, you couldn't. Yeah, sometimes that is what lupus looks like. Sometimes you have, like you mentioned with Big Joe with MS, his diagnosis, there are times when I know I should not physically be driving because I cannot, the brain fog alone, it would be irresponsible of me and dangerous to drive. And it can hit you that quick. Like, the tiredness, the complete exhaustion can just overwhelm you like a wave. And you have to go lay down. It's not that you're given a choice. Your body is forcing you to go lay down. Also, for myself and some other people, sunlight and heat is a huge trigger for lupus. I cannot be in the sun, which clearly by my complexion is probably obvious. But the sunlight is a really big trigger for me. And that, honestly, going back to when I was really young, that makes sense because I always got very sick on like hot days when we would be out swimming or running around. And I was the only one that would get like a reaction to the sun and get rashes. And you mentioned that rash, the butterfly rash, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's important to know also, because that's actually the symbol that, for the Lupus Awareness Month, which is in May, is the butterfly rash. And of course, I have makeup on right now, so you can't see, but it is a very, well, it depends on the person, but it's a redness that goes over the nose and sort of on the cheeks. And it's sort of like the shape of a butterfly. And that's sort of where that came from. And that, a purple butterfly is the symbol for lupus awareness.
Jen, do people die from lupus? Can it take you out completely?
It can. We're very fortunate that we live in the day and age we live in now. I know that back in like the 1950s, there was like a 40 to 50% survival rate, but now it's much, much higher. I think the last research that I read about was like in 95, and it's far higher survival rate than that because of medications, treatment, experimental treatment, and knowing what are your triggers. Like for myself, stay out of sunlight. There's just certain things you have to consider before you do it. And there's a lot of research that's gone on, and a lot more. I mean, it's something like, I think mortality rate now is something like 20%. I'm not an expert. I'm just, sharing my experience and what I've been made aware of by my doctor and what I've read, but it's far better now than it was before.
So you're talking about how like the fatigue can just kind of hit you like a tidal wave. So there are days where you feel like there's nothing wrong with you. You feel good. You're energetic. Are those days? Do you have those days?
I don't want to like give false hope out there and say I have more. Those days are few and far between for me. Okay. Personally, it's hard to say because every month is different. But my doctor, the way he does it is he tries to, how many days do you have per month that you feel like? And my feeling okay might be very different from what you say feeling okay is. I might have 3 days a month where I feel like I can accomplish quite a bit today. I can do all those loads of laundry, pick the kids up, and I do all these things. Yes, not always because I feel like I can. I push through and do as much as I can. That's because I have to. And I'm honored to be able to, but I do have family, my mom, my grandma, my aunt, like I have a support system, but I try not to reach out unless I absolutely need it because I don't know, I'm sure other people, if you speak with them, can give their own experience, but there is a sense of guilt that goes along with having an autoimmune disease because it's like a silent illness. Like I said, you can look at someone and think, you look fine. Come on.
Yeah, you know what? Listen, I mean, thank the Lord up above that, I haven't had to go through that, what you're going through and all. But yeah, I feel weird and odd already asking for help.
Yeah.
I feel I feel like I'm being an inconvenience to somebody. Say, hey, you know what, can you help me with this? Can you come take time out of your day to come help me with this? So it's the people that don't feel that way that I take a little bit of issue with. They're always wanting a favor.
Oh yeah.
Stuff. And that's a story. That's a video for a whole nother day.
I think so. Yeah.
I will definitely get into that. But no, I got you, Jen, because if you can't walk, it's something that somebody can see, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like I need help to reach for this or that or what have you, right? But this, nobody can really see it.
Right.
So it's like, hey, I'm like super tired, got like a major headache. Mm-hmm. It's like, you felt like that yesterday and the day before, and you felt like that last week. Like, come on, like, do you really feel it? So I get what you're saying. I think I would probably have that guilt feeling as well, because you can't see it.
Right. It's definitely, I can say, okay, so for example, my first marriage, I felt like, and God rest his soul, like he was very much more gentle and understanding, right? Mm-hmm. But I could see it took his toll on him. It's not easy for the other party being with someone who has a silent illness. And, it made me feel, you feel guilt all the way around, but, you see the effect it has on your family or your spouse or whoever's closest to you. And it is like, sometimes he would not consciously, but say, well, you were just fine yesterday,
Right.
and today I'm with a migraine. Sorry guys, but that's part of my vomiting. I can't be in the light, no noise at all. That's going to affect the entire family unit, so it's not easy on the spouse, the kids, anyone around you.
I'm glad you brought that up. Because I don't think people really think about that enough. Yeah, you were talking about, your family, your mom and stuff like that, but also, the one you're going to share your life with, they're taking that on as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I can definitely see what you're saying. It's like, you were just fine yesterday. We got plans today, and it's going to require a lot of walking. And I can definitely see, was that tough? Jen, was that tough for you?
It was very tough. Yeah, it was very tough. And I can only compare what I've lived through, right? So like my first marriage, his family, he had a big family, amazing people. I love them to this day. And there was a lot of family events, with 36 nieces and nephews, you can imagine. And there started to be a lot of times I would miss out on as my illness progressed. And yeah, it caused a lot of friction. And people, I didn't even understand it. So how could they,
Right.
People didn't understand how come she doesn't want to be here? Or of course, I wanted to be there so bad, And even just the brain fog, like if you go, you're able to go, you're having a day that, okay, I'm not bedridden, but I'm going to go. I'm just coming off of 2 weeks of being bedridden. You feel like almost like an out of body experience. There's all this noise and lights, and you feel so odd and out of place. And that affected also a lot of my relationships with friends, because people thought, Jen just doesn't want to come. She's going to flake.
Yeah.
And I started to feel really bad about myself. Like, okay, everyone's going to think that of me. So I'm not even going to try to attempt to make friends or have anyone in my life because I'm just going to disappoint people. So I just withdrew from everyone.
Yeah. Okay. You ever get depressed over it?
Constantly, yes. Now, I mean, I've struggled with that since I was probably 12 years old, depression. But yeah, it's a different level, different layer of depression when it's okay, not just your regular depression, but okay, I have all these little people or teenage people that I'm responsible for. How do I know that I'm going to be okay tomorrow, or I'm going to be able to show up, or it's a birthday party? Am I going to be good in 2 weeks? What if I'm not? What if I let them down? Who's going to want to be my friend? I'm a disappointment because I can't promise you I'm going to be there. So yeah, it's definitely a struggle for your mental health and depression.
Wow. Yeah. And you're saying, it can just hit you like a tidal wave. So you can be okay, and then it just comes down on you, like you're just like, wow, I'm out of it now.
Yeah.
I mean, can it be just like that?
It can. Now, I'm not saying like I knock out, within a second, but I can feel it like it's almost like a weight that feels like it's pulling me down physically. Wow. If I didn't know what I already have now, I would feel like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? I need to go to the doctor right away. But now I know, okay, I'm in a flare up.
Okay.
And that's important to learn that and accept, because it can cause you major anxiety and panic if you don't realize what's going on in your body. I'm in a flare up. This is the start of it. I'm starting to feel, very exhausted. I'm feeling like I need to just go lay down and disconnect from reality for a while. If you're on medications, follow the instructions, follow up with your doctors, and be, as much as I was raised not to be gentle to yourself, like back in the day, it was like, come on, get up. Like, what's wrong with you? Don't be lazy.
Right.
It's an actual condition. So it's not, I had to accept that. It's not being lazy. Like, you literally have an autoimmune disease. Your blood cells in your body are telling itself to attack. Something foreign is in you and it's attacking itself. So it's constantly on fight mode. And you have to accept that, but realize that it will let up. Don't, and I've done this. I've fallen into, I'm never going to be better. I'm never going to be good enough. I'm never going to be like that mom that can be at everything. My life is over. But even if it takes a while, you will come out of that flare up. You will have some good days. So just, and try to make yourself even if it's just a few people that know about it, it's nothing to be ashamed of. You're not contagious. You know what I mean? It's not a contagious disease. It's an autoimmune disease. Have a few people that know what you're going through to encourage you during that time, even if it's just a text message and you can't physically talk or have a conversation, just to pray for you or encourage you. Like, this is going to pass.
What's your relationship with your kids because of this? I mean, you said, you can't go to everything. You can't be there. You can't be that, high energy mom all the time. What's your relationship with your kids?
With my son, and he's 25 years old, it's, he had me at my best,
Okay.
He had me that first, 5-6 years of being able to go. I was at every class function, making all the cupcakes, and I loved it. I loved it. And he loved it.
Okay.
So he remembers, and I'm not saying that it dropped off right after that, but he saw me when I started to get ill. And that first 3 years, I was basically homebound. So he would, even at that young age, he would be like, "What's wrong, Mom?" He realized something was going on. And I would just tell him, "Honey, I don't know what's wrong. I'm sick again." And he realized that he had a part of me that his sisters don't have. Some people might say "Oh, well, how selfish, you continued to have children." Well, that's not, in my case, part of me that stopped. I, was able to have some good points in my life where I continued my marriage and relationship, and I felt joy over my children. Absolutely. It didn't stop that. But it comes in waves and flows. You might have some good days, you might have some really bad days. Now, I try to take advantage of the good days I have. And anyone with an autoimmune disease, you're going to hear that, I guarantee you. When we have a few good days, they're going to try to get so much done during that time. Let me take the kids and do this and that, or make the best of it. And my oldest daughter, she understands somewhat because I became sick shortly after she was born. So she understands somewhat. My 17-year-old, I don't know, it could be the age, the personality. She's also a lot more like me, so we butt heads a bit more. And she gets frustrated, but then she'll realize and come back and say, "You know what, Mom, I'm sorry. I was feeling this way. I was just frustrated, And I'll tell her, "No, if that's how you felt in that moment, tell me how you feel. It's okay to be frustrated. I'm frustrated. I get it. I remember, like I said, my mom being sick from the time I could remember."
Right.
And my little one, Ruby, the 9-year-old, I do, she has a lot more support because she's the baby. She has all her older siblings, and I really try to make the best of the good days I have. I take her to school, pick her up from school, and even I always tease her with she's my surprise baby. I didn't find out I was pregnant with Ruby until I was I was 5 months pregnant.
Mm.
And that's because the medications I was on were interfering with the birth control I was on.
Mm.
So I just assumed I'm depressed right now. I'm not feeling well, until I went for my next shot, and they were like, "Oh no, you're not getting your shot today. You're pregnant." And I had about a 3-hour meltdown in the parking lot. So, but she's my little firecracker, you know. She keeps
Yeah.
me going. Yeah.
Hey, Jen, is there is there any talks? Is there any concerns? You know, your mom had it, you have it. Is there any concerns with you? Do you have any talks with, especially your daughters, since this attacks females more than it does males? Is there any concerns with you or any talks that you have with your daughters?
I do stay on top of their medical visits. Like, even my son, I pester him to go get his checkups because he does get migraines. My son does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he also played contact sports for many years. So I stay on top of them to get their checkups. There's blood work that can be done, like I said, and different tests that can be done. And I know what to look out for because you know what I mean? I live in it. So even though everybody's lupus life is different, I sort of know what to look out for. And I want to say this, I feel grateful and thankful because it could be far, far worse. If you happen to be someone that has lupus in your kidneys or heart that causes inflammation, that's where things can start to get very serious or fatal. And I haven't had any of those test results or experiences come back. But as far as my kids go, I keep an eye on that. And there was some recent testing done that I don't know the exact details, but there was some testing done that said it can be transmitted through birth to the newborn. So that's very new. Just, I don't know too much on it, but there were several tests. I think out of Cincinnati, there's a specialist there that was talking about it recently.
Mm. Yeah, and it's a disease that we're still learning about.
Yeah.
They're still learning about it. I try to do a little bit of research coming into this, and basically just to get it all together and just put in a few words, it's still experimental. They still really don't know. Like you said in the beginning, environmental might have something to do with it, but they really don't know the cause. And they're still trying to learn from lupus. So, and man, so many prayers going to you and your family and anybody who suffers from any autoimmune disease. Jen, before we wrap it up, girlfriend, I mean, have you accepted, hey, this is your life, you're gonna live with this. It's possible that, hey, maybe they come up with a solution and a cure for it. Hey, you know what? Fingers crossed, prayers every night and every morning for it. But it's more likely that this is it. I mean, have you made peace with that, Jen?
I have. I think I made peace with that probably about 9 years ago, 10 years ago. Okay. And I thought, and you know what? That was really, when you say make peace with that, it makes perfect sense because that's when I made peace.
Okay.
Except this is where you're at. You're going to have some really bad days, but you're going to have some much better days. And I have faith that anything is possible with God. That might seem silly to some people, but for me, that helps me get through from day to day. And I know that things can always be worse. So I'm going to appreciate the moment I'm in that moment. I'm not saying I don't have days where I am very depressed. I cry or feel sorry for myself. But on the days that I don't, I'm grateful for that moment. And I think about and I pray for the people who are suffering from far worse.
And with that, Jen, before we wrap it up, anything you want to say to anybody who's suffering from lupus or MS or any autoimmune disease?
I would want to say this. I'm glad you asked that. Don't feel silly for going to your doctor, even if it's multiple times, and saying, this is still wrong. I still have headaches. My bones hurt every day. You know, I got put off for many years as just, that's just this or that. It runs in your family. Oh, you were in a car accident. It's just migraines. It's your hormones. All of that could be true. But with lupus, the more early you catch it, the better chances you have of sort of preventing it from getting worse. So you have to be your own advocate. So keep speaking up, keep going back. Your doctors are there for a reason. Don't feel silly, don't feel ashamed. Show up for you.
And there you have it. One Miss Jen Magana. And you know what? Let me just throw this out there, right? Because I've been trying to keep pushing people to be active, moving, go for walks, go for hikes, go for swims, go for bike rides.
Yeah.
Because there's people that would really love to do that stuff.
Yeah.
But because of their condition, they don't really get a chance to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't got that condition, I was gonna say excuse, it's not an excuse because it's a condition, then get up and move around. And you don't have to be, Captain America trying to work out at the gym all day long or anything, but get up, move around and experience this stuff, because there's people that would really love to do that. And I think a lot of people just, especially today with technology, they just, it's so much easier to stay indoors and not do anything.
Yeah.
But it's a privilege to really be able to get up and really move around. And when I hear stories of people like you, Jen, it makes me want to get up and keep moving. Heck, we're going to end this hour and I'll probably get up and run till I drop. So, Jen, thank you so much, girlfriend, for coming on here and sharing your story, being open about it and how it affects you, and not just you, but your family.
Yeah. Thank you for allowing me that opportunity. I never thought I would have spoke about it, honestly, openly. So you opened that door for me, and I appreciate you for that. I do feel a lot better.
All right. Well, there you have it. And you guys can find her on Convicted Hearts. Go check her out. That is my sister, Jen Magana. As always, familia, live your life like you're on the road. Be aware of your surroundings and always keep a safe distance. Blood makes you related, but loyalty makes you family. Until next time, this is Thecholotrucker for my sister, mi hermana, one Miss Jen Magana. Over and out.
Over and out.